Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 89. Richard Swinford, 222 inches, 300 pounds, and the lead sled buck. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Jim Koger with TrophyPursuit.com, and you're listening to Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hi, this is Sean Lupkel with Heartland Bowhunter.
Hey, this is Michael Huntucker with Heartland Bowhunter.
And you're listening to my favorite podcast on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry's
Big Buck Podcast.
Hi, this is Joel Maxfield from Matthews Inc., and you're listening to my favorite podcast on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to another Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. This is Jay Scott.
This is Dusty Phillips.
And we're psyched you're joining us again. Dusty's in Ohio. Absolutely. I'm in New Hampshire.
It's always good.
It's always good.
It's always good to be on the mic talking about whitetails. Buck hunting.
Yeah.
Man, it don't get no better.
You ever hunt in Carhartts, Dusty?
Man, I can't say. I've ground and pounded like in a ground blind.
Yeah.
But never out of a tree stand. But, it's one of them things where it's keeping it real and the cost is Carhartts are a general purpose. You can use Carhartts for baling hay, cutting grass, working outside. It's a general purpose camouflage. How about that?
It is. And I think there are a lot of American hunters that would probably throw on some Carhartts and a hoodie and go out in the woods. It's probably more common than not. Of course, you get all the glamorized, specialized camouflage and you can buy any suit you want, and you look great in a catalog.
Yeah, right.
But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, does it really matter? Am I going to shoot a bigger buck because I bought some camouflage?
Right.
I don't know. And my case in point here is a man that shot a 300-pound big Indiana whitetail.
That's a dressed gut
weight.
Yeah,
so
300.
Probably 400 plus on the hoof. And 222 something inches.
Gross, yeah. Wow, man.
Wearing Carhartts and a hoodie, which is a standard hunting attire. And he shot a buck of a lifetime. This is probably the biggest buck we've ever talked about on the Big Buck Podcast.
Yeah, I'd say as far as weight and antler, I'm saying it is by far.
Yeah. So, we get these great bucks sent in all the time to the Big Buck Podcast. And there are some that stick out a little more than others. And those ones that stick out are the ones that I reach out to personally to say, could you tell me a little bit more about this buck? And this is the one from Richard Swinford that caught my eye. And this is the Richard Swinford Monster Buck Original Big Buck Podcast story.
The old lead sled buck.
The lead sled buck. So before we get Richard to tell his story on the Big Buck Podcast, I'd like to give a shout out to
the Hillbilly Weatherman.
The Hillbilly Weatherman, who is a fellow New Hampshireite with me. And he's got this social media viral thing going on where he's doing the weather of all things. People have been doing weather for years, but somehow he's found a way to make it go viral.
It's a little twist.
Little naughty.
It's not
potty mouth, but not too bad.
I guarantee if you watch it, you're going to laugh,
Yeah.
If you can't laugh at the Hillbilly Weatherman, there's something wrong.
You're a little too uptight.
Yeah, he's just having a good time and telling the weather.
Yeah, and it's probably more accurate and probably more relative to the way we really feel about weather, especially this year.
Absolutely.
I'm just done. Although we're starting to get some pretty good melting going on in New Hampshire, which I'm psyched about. But you're still getting snow, and I'm sure we've got more to come. But Adam Evans is the Hillbilly Weatherman. So we want to give a shout out to our good friend, Adam Evans. Keep up the great work. And he's actually going to be on a local TV show here in the next couple of days called New Hampshire Chronicle, which is kind of a big deal. So I just hope things keep going for him. I think he's onto something.
Absolutely. It's just a good fun and You know, the way he tells the weather to get out of his neck of the woods is pretty comical.
And I got to speak with Adam on the phone the other day. Guess what? Turns out he's a big deer hunter.
That's awesome.
So we have something in common. And someday soon, hopefully, we'll have the Hillbilly Weatherman on the Big Buck podcast because he is a hunter. And we like talking to hunters, especially hunters that take big deer, 300-pound deer. So let's get Richard Swinford on to talk about the lead sled buck.
Let's get him on, Jay.
Richard Swinford, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Well, we're psyched to have you. Of course, our favorite topic is always big deer hunting, and you happen to fit that bill like perfectly.
Oh, man, I'd say, wow.
When I say big, it doesn't necessarily have to be a big rack buck to be on our show. But when you say 300 pounds, that's a big deer.
Yeah, it was a gigantic deer for sure.
That's almost like putting a beef in the freezer, you know?
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy. Richard, how big are you, like, physically? Are you?
I'm 6 foot tall,
okay,
and I weigh 170 pounds. So I'm, just a normal sized guy.
Right. Normal sized guy. And this buck is almost twice you.
Right.
That's incredible. We got to get this story. Dusty, you with me?
Absolutely. What a great buck. And, man, I can't wait to hear the story behind this buck. I can't wait
to hear this story. So, Richard, tell us where you are right now.
Right now I'm sitting in my office in my home in Vermillion County, Indiana.
Gotcha. And this is where you call home and have for a while, or is this a new place for you?
I was born and raised in Indiana.
Very cool.
So been here my whole life.
All right. And how many years are we talking about?
34.
34.
34 years, yep.
Nice. And how many of the 34 years have you been deer hunting?
18.
Very nice.
18 years.
So you shot this.
And the whole 18 years that I've been hunting has been on our family farm. And I've been hunting in the same place. Well, I shot my first deer with a 10-point buck, and I shot it 10 yards away from where I shot this deer.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow. So this is your family farm. So you must protect this place.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Like it's no tomorrow. I mean, you're not going to let. Yeah. You're gonna treat this very specially, I would imagine. Tell us about the farm.
Right, yeah.
Tell us about the farm.
Oh, the farm. Okay. Yeah. It's my dad's place. His place is there, my dad's house, and we raise beef cattle. So we've got some pasture, and then we've got some row crops, corn. We do some hay, and the place that I actually shot this deer is just south of my dad's house, and it's just picture a big 80-acre square. The front 40 acres is corn, and the back 40 acres is pasture. And that pasture, right dead center of that pasture, is a creek that runs east to west, straight down that pasture. And on both sides of that is just grass that we pasture the cows in. And normally where I sit just on the north side of that creek that runs right between that pasture. And that's where I've sat since I've been hunting.
So your first buck was taken there in this exact spot.
Yep.
And that was 18 years ago. And what was happening before the 18 years ago? I mean, was this family farm has been around for a long time? Do you have other family members that hunt the same spot?
Well, before that, no. It was just us, and me and my brother are the only two that really hunt. My dad does that occasionally, but with the farming and the cows and sometimes he's just too busy to get out and go. But when we were younger, I mean, he'd go with us, quite a bit.
Okay.
But anymore, it's just me and my brother, and it's. It almost gets down to a fist fight sometimes, on me and him every year where we're going to go hunting at. But
really?
Since I end up, it gets pretty heated sometimes. But the cool thing is, though, is that I ended up, that was my first deer that I'd shot, and that 10-pointer. And for some reason, I ended up getting dibs on that 80 acres there south of my dad, so that's where I go. So he kind of, he kind of leaves me alone with it and, lets me do my thing. But he's got another 300 acres that he's free to roam around on. So, I don't know who really gets the better end of the stick, but I've got the better deer for sure.
How old's your brother?
My brother is 32.
32. So he's the young one. He's the younger brother.
Yep.
And it sounds like you got a little rivalry going on. And tell us more about your the competitive nature of hunting with your brother.
Okay. Well, I mean, we always try to one up each other. I mean, all the time, every year. He goes out. He scouts. He goes shed hunting. He tries to. Always tries to one up. Well, a couple of years back, north of my mom and dad's place, we've got a hayfield. It's kind of down in like a little valley. And he was out looking around, doing some shed hunting, and he called me and said, "Rich, you got to get over here. You got to look at this." I'm like, "What is he talking about?" So I go over there. There was 2 bucks that were locked together, and I'm not sure I don't know when it happened, but they had cut a dirt circle out in the middle of that hayfield. And one was a 12-pointer that was pretty decent size, and the other was a 10. And he wanted to get them mounted where they were, locked together, just a full mount. But the guy that he took it to wouldn't do it, so we ended up getting just like a European style where they're still locked together. But that was pretty neat. So
that's
amazing. He's always trying just to one up me for sure.
Gotcha.
But I think it's going to be hard to do after I shot this one.
Does that go back to like when you were 5 and 6 years old, or 5 and 8 years old?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Just from day one, you guys have been on each other.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. All right, so how did you decide who was going to hunt where? That's what I want to know.
Well, that's since I was the first one to shoot pretty much the first deer when we went hunting, and that's where I shot it from. It pretty much just gave me dibs down there.
Gotcha.
South of my dad.
Okay.
So, but every year he try, if I shoot one, or if I don't get one, because I usually just go gun hunt. I don't go bow hunting or
okay. You're a gun hunter.
Right. Yeah. I usually just go firearm season. So usually, during bow season, like, hey, do you mind if I go down there? I'm gonna go down there and just see what's going on. Or during muzzleloader, hey, since gun season, well, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna go down there. And I usually let him go down there, but I mean, he's pretty good about just giving me my space.
That's cool. Do you have anybody else that tries to kind of sneak in on your properties, or is your brother pretty much your only threat?
Pretty much, yeah, just my brother, really.
Gotcha.
We've got a few guys every year that want to come out and they just want to meat hunt. They just want a doe or something just to throw in their freezer. We let those guys come out and do that, but they don't go where I go. That's kind of off limits, really.
Gotcha. Is the family farm part of your lifestyle and livelihood, or is it just something that's still in the family and you use it for alternative means?
Well, my dad's livelihood for sure, and I work there part time.
Okay.
And the other time I work in town with the water department. So, but yeah, it's always been his livelihood. So
gotcha. What are you producing on the farm?
We've got corn that we grow, and then soybeans, and then hay and then some of the times we cut silage.
Okay.
So we can feed the cows through the winter too. So
gotcha. So yeah, so there's definitely a part of your life that's been there for a long time. This farm, right? From as long as you can remember. And how many generations back does it go?
Two generations.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Right.
And then another neat thing is my the country block that my dad lives on. My uncle together pretty much own that entire block.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's all family that hunt around us pretty much.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, all the guys that are coming in, and he's pretty strict on, the guys who lets come in, and hunt too. So, my cousin, he lives just up the road. So, I mean, we're a pretty close family here. So, and it makes it nice in a way because, everybody that's and where they're going to be hunting, and, you don't have to worry about, this guy walking in on you and who's, hunting over there. And so it makes it pretty nice, especially, for our kids, when they're going to get old enough to where we can take and we don't have to worry about, the guy that's, hunting, on the other side of the property and, where he's really going to be. And so it makes it kind of nice.
Yeah, that's a special spot right there. I mean, it goes back a couple generations, and your whole family gets to enjoy it. And it's nice that you have so many outdoorsmen that actually not only work the land for your livelihood, but you also enjoy it for recreation too. So it's not just work; it's recreational. That's very cool. So going back 18 years, 1997. was the year you shot your first deer.
Yep.
And it was out of this area. Tell me more about that one area. Like what am I looking at?
Okay. Well, the area pretty much it's separated. You have the cornfield, the 40-acre cornfield that's out front. There's a county road that runs east and west at the north end of that cornfield.
Okay.
And then right to the south of that 40 acres, there's a fence row that splits that and pasture. And then right dead center of that pasture ground is a creek that runs east and west through there, and that is the only place that there's trees in that pasture, just right along that creek.
Okay.
The whole width of that spot down there. And I usually sit where I usually sit is just on the about dead center of that pasture, just right on the north side of that creek.
What's on the east and west end of the creek once it reaches the property line?
Okay, once you get on the west end is a county road that runs north and south, and then on the east end is my uncle's cornfield, and I think that's 110 acres. I think that's over there, and that's what's on the east side.
So it's kind of a little hangout in between the county road and a 110-acre cornfield. Right, yeah, because then on the other on the west side of that county road that's on the west end of that pasture, there's like a 100-acre wooded area there that's got a cornfield on the north and south of it. Yeah, so it's kind of like just an alleyway, between the cornfield and that other woods over there. Gotcha. So it's kind of like a travel corridor. Right. Yeah. Yep. Interesting.
Very, very interesting. So you shot your first deer in 97, and it was back then that you realized that this was a good place to hunt, and it's kind of been the same layout since then. It sounds like trees grow a little bit, and maybe a little change here and there to the topography based off of climate and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's been the same for 18 years.
Yep.
And how many years in a row have you shot deer out of this one location?
The only year that I haven't shot a deer was 2012, and I think 2009 were the only 2 years that I didn't harvest a deer out of there. Every other year besides that I had.
Gotcha. What were the reasons why you wouldn't shoot a deer? Was it that none were coming through, or you just didn't find anything that you liked?
Yeah, pretty much. I just didn't see anything that I really liked. And then, after, shooting this buck, it's, because every day you walk in the house, you see this deer hanging on your wall. So then, you're getting psyched, you're for hunting season, you're ready to go out. And then you go out and you sit and, you see a really decent deer. Man, it's just not, what I really want to shoot.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's really the only reason.
Gotcha. Let's get into your setup a little bit, Richard. How do you prepare for a hunt? And when I say prepare, I mean, going back to even preseason, hunting for a lot of us is all year round, and it's not that you're necessarily hunting, but the preparation is a ongoing thing. When do you consider the season to start? When do you start getting active again for the next deer season?
When do I really start getting active?
Yeah, when do you start thinking about it again? I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about it all year round, but when do you start putting in effort to get ready for the next season?
Usually what I really get hyped up is when we start, harvesting the crops.
Okay.
Because, it's starting to get cool, it's the fall, the crops are starting to come out. It's, it's getting close, but, it's right there, but you can't go yet. It's one of those deals. It's so close, but, you still gotta get the crops out before you can go. And that's kind of getting onto a different topic here. The day that I shot that deer, we were mowing and baling corn stalks out of that cornfield to use for bedding for the cows. It was getting kind of late in the evening. It was around 5 o'clock. I'm like, man, if I don't get out here and go now, I'm gonna miss it, and I'll just have to wait till tomorrow. So we were about to get that field wrapped up, and I called my dad and said, hey, I'm going to take off. I had everything on the road. He was, had the baler running. I'm like, hey, I'm going to park this tractor. I'm going to run down. I'll get in the stand and see if I see anything. He's like, yeah, no problem. Go ahead. So I run up to the house, take the tractor up, get changed on my clothes, get my hunting stuff on, get my gun, hop in the truck, run down the road, park, walk in, get my stand. And the day that I shot that deer, it was rather windy and it was warm. It was really mild that day.
What time of year is this? So, this is the fall?
Yeah, this was November. This was November. So this was Indiana firearm season. So yeah, it It was November 13th.
November 13th. All right.
When you say hunting gear, tell us a little bit about your hunting gear.
Usually they're just, I've got a pair of, just muck rubber boots that I like to wear. And, I got a pair of bibs. And usually I'm not a big camo guy. So really that picture that you've seen with me in the green zip up hoodie and the brown Carhartt style bibs, that's usually what I wear when I hunt.
So your hunting gear, is a pair of Carhartt bibs and a Pioneer Seed sweatshirt.
Yeah, that's what I hunted.
A hoodie and Carhartt. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's all I've ever hunted in, really. Huh. The first deer that I ever shot, I had a pair of just blue dungarees on and a brown Carhartt button-up jacket and an orange cap.
That's great.
Do you use any kind of scent cover?
No scent cover.
No scent cover.
Nothing. That's it.
Wow.
Yep. And I don't know, with working with the cows and all that, if the cow manure and all that, I'm sure that has, some scent blocking properties of itself, because I don't wash my bibs all the time and messing with cows and stuff, so I'm sure and that deer that I shot, I'd seen him earlier that year when I was sitting in the stand, and earlier that season, and that deer would just walk out and graze in the middle of those cows that were out in that pasture.
No kidding.
He just mingle around with it like Jesus.
He thought he was one.
So yeah, right.
He was probably the closest thing to one as far as weight wise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's funny. So he got kind of casual with the cows. He just kind of blend in and go on his merry way.
The cows didn't really pay any attention to him either. He just walked down through the pasture and just grazed as he was walking. But the time that I saw him doing that, he was a couple hundred yards away. So
right. But still, he's comfortable. You could tell. I mean, doesn't sound there's a lot of pressure on this area. It sounds like you guys pay attention to pressure a lot, so that the deer are comfortable. They're not spooked. Right. They're not getting pushed out of there, which is a huge piece. And as we've learned over the years, is that some of the bigger deer are taken in areas that have a comfort zone for them, a safety zone, so to speak.
Yep.
So that's got to be a piece of this whole puzzle, of course. And you have a family farm. They're not moving off of there. They're feeding on great, they've got great feed all around them. They're just
he's got a smorgasbord. He can eat what he wants and just graze with the cows and just go wherever.
Takes what he wants when he wants it. Has plenty of nutrition, which would explain, as we have learned, is that antler growth is really just a byproduct of excess nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So the healthier the deer, the bigger the rack is going to grow, basically, because it's got so much good stuff coming in.
Absolutely. Yep. You get to the woods here, and you got your Carhartts and your hooded Pioneer Seed sweatshirt on. What kind of firearm are you carrying in?
I was using that year, it was an H&R 500 Smith & Wesson handy rifle. So pretty much it was just a glorified, 500 Smith & Wesson revolver is what I was using.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, where did that gun come from? Is that something you've had for a while, or is that something that you bought recently?
I'd had it for a couple of years, and every deer that I'd shot with that thing, just fell dead. It was just lifeless. You pull the trigger, you'd hit the deer, it'd just fall dead, just lifeless. And another neat thing is every deer that I've shot has not been more than 20 yards away from me, and I've never had to track a deer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is insane. Yeah. So tell us more about this gun. Say what the name of it again is.
It's the name of the gun. It's an H&R 500 Smith & Wesson handy rifle.
Okay.
And what it shoots a 500 Smith & Wesson handgun round. Is what it is.
Okay. And how did you research this gun? Was it something that you'd read about and wanted to check it out, or is it? How did you acquire it?
Well, that and my brother had been talking about it and said, you got to check this gun out. So we headed out east to a town east of here called Morton, and there's a little gun store there in Morton, and I went over there and we were checking them out, and it felt good. And I'd never shot a 500 Smith & Wesson anything before, but I knew it was a pretty decent round. So we go over there and check it out, and get a scope mounted on it and bring it back and fire it off. And that thing kicks like you wouldn't believe. Like the 12 gauge kicks,
Sure.
That's got a little bit of kick, but this thing kicks, you know it. I mean, it's got some knockdown power for sure.
Got some bark to it, huh?
Yeah.
How big are the rounds, like inch wise? What are you talking about there?
They're probably the size of maybe the size of your pinky, probably. So I mean, they're not really huge rounds. I mean, compared to like a 12-gauge slug.
Okay.
It's just a really big handgun size round. What it is.
Interesting. So it's is it shorter? How long is it?
A couple inches.
Okay. So it's a short round, and it's just looks like a large handgun load.
Right. Yeah. So it is.
Interesting. Yep. Interesting. That's I'd never heard of that gun in a deer hunt before. Yeah, that's a first for me. How about you, Dusty? You heard of this?
Yeah, absolutely. 500 Smith & Wesson's a bad mamma jamma.
It sure is.
Oh man, I've shot it a couple times. It's definitely not cheap to shoot, but wow, it's got all kinds of power coming out the end of that barrel. You better grab two hands if you're shooting a pistol. You better hang on to her.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool. All right, so bring us back to the hunt. So you've been working in the field all day, getting some corn for the cows to lay in.
Yep.
And
November
13th, it's about 5:00, and you're feeling a little pressured to get out of the field.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't go now, I'm not going to get out there. What time is the sun set that day? Do you remember?
It's usually about 6:00. I mean, it's starting to get dark. It's pretty tough to see at 6:00.
Right.
So I don't have an hour of or less of good hunting time.
Gotcha. So I mean, you've got minimal number of daylight hours here. You're less than an hour out.
Yeah.
You run back to the house. You change in your Carhartts and your hoodie. Grab your 500. Get in the pickup truck. And where do you go from there?
From there, I head west to my dad's, straight in front of the cornfield. Take a left, head south, and then there's a bridge about halfway down that road, and it's about where the fields are separated. And I usually park there, or I normally park even further south. But I parked there that day. Got out, walked down the fence line, did this next foot road all the way down to the creek, and then followed the creek halfway down to my stand. So I get up in my stand. By that time, I'm panting because I'm hurrying, trying to get down. But I don't want to make too much noise, to run something off if something is, down there or, bedded down or something. So I get down and get up in my stand.
Are you concerned about the sound or anything like that? I mean, is it windy enough to cover any kind of sound that you're making from movement?
Well, yeah, the wind was blowing. I mean, it was breezy. It was breezy. But, I didn't want to sound like a big bear running through the woods. I was trying to, kind of watch the sound stuff. But, so I made it down. I got in my stand, sitting there trying to catch my breath. So by that time, it's, 5:15. So I'm sitting in my stand. Cows weren't out there that day. They weren't out in the pasture. Normally, when I'm sitting in my stand, the cows are, 100 yards away out in the pasture. I can see them kind of mingling around out there, grazing. But they weren't out there that day. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to listen for something, some kind of movement, anything. But with the way the wind was blowing, I mean, you couldn't make out if it was a squirrel or a cow or any kind of animal. The way that the wind was rustling the leaves around. So I'm sitting there and I pull out my phone. Check the weather, check tomorrow's, sunset, if it's going to be breezy, what the temperature is going to be. Because I know I've always got another day to go.
So
didn't really figure I was going to see anything.
You're already thinking about tomorrow.
Right, yeah. I'm like, well, this is, just pretty much a waste, really, coming down here. But, hey, I'll give it a shot. Come down here, sit in the stand, see what's going to happen. Yeah, so I had my phone out, checking the weather for tomorrow, the temperature, wind, just checking everything. So I'm looking at my phone. Not really paying attention to much. And I hadn't been in the stand probably 10 minutes, if that. I look up and I catch this, kind of a white, kind of like a white shimmer kind of. What the hell is that?
Where is this white shimmer coming from?
This is to my right side. I just kind of caught it out of, the far corner of my right eye.
Okay.
And there's the creek's right behind my stand. So I'm kind of, messing with my phone. I see this kind of like this white shimmer. I'm like, what the heck is that? So I turn and look, and I see this rack behind this brush.
How far out is it?
10 yards.
10 yards?
Yeah, 10 yards. 10 yards away.
So
oh my God.
It's not like it's 100 yards into the pasture or anything. I mean, it's right there.
No, this thing is right there. I mean, it's right there. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, I've got my gun across my lap. I've got my phone in my hand. This deer's 30 or 10 yards away. I'm like, what is going on? So the deer was behind enough brush and had no idea that I was there. So he was still kind of just moseying along, just kind of walking nice and easy. So I slip my phone back in my pocket, get both my hands on the gun. So by that time, he's, about straight out from my right shoulder.
Okay. So
I'm sitting there waiting. And straight out in front of me, about 20 yards, there's a big pile of brush, like a big, a mulfa rose bush. So I'm sitting there. And that deer gets up, gets right behind that mulfa rose bush. So I get my gun up, perfect chance, get my gun up, put my gun up, get against my shoulder, looking down the scope. Deer walks out, broadside, look down the scope, pull the trigger. I still got the safety on. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this deer's going to see me. It's going to see me. So I release the safety on the gun, get him in the scope, pull the trigger, boom. I saw I saw a big red spot on the deer, right behind the front leg. Oh yes, I got it. That deer takes off running. I mean, this thing is just on a dead spot. Every other deer that I've shot with that gun dropped dead instantly. This deer takes off just running. I'm like, oh my God, please go down. I know I hit it. So I watched that deer. It probably ran 200 yards and then ducked right into the creek. And I heard a big, crash, bang. I'm like, oh my God.
And this is behind you, the creek?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he took off, he was right in front of me, then he took off, just 200 yards, straight west, and then ducked back down the creek.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, what the heck do I do? I'm like, I'm not going to get down. Risk that thing getting up and taking off. And
sure.
Oh my God. So I texted my brother. Got my phone out, texting brother. I'm like, Rob, you're not going to believe the deer that I just shot. He's like, yeah, whatever. So I texted him. I texted him again. I'm like, seriously, you're going to have to come down here and help me a little bit because, but we got to track this deer. It's starting to get dark and I need somebody to help me. She's like, yeah, just call me if you get down and see something. Yeah, oh, okay. So I sit there for a little while. I get down, and it's just about dusk. So I climb down, walk over where he went into the woods down by the creek, and I see that thing laying there just all watered up, laying by the creek. I'm like, oh my God. So I get my phone out, take a quick picture, and send it to my brother. Within 2 minutes, he was down there to help me drag that thing out of the woods. And he got there pretty quick after I framed the picture. But
oh, that's funny.
But when we went down, we had to drag him up a little bitty incline. And that deer, with guts and everything, I bet that thing had to weigh 450 pounds. So we grabbed a hold of it.
Yeah.
And from where the deer was laying to the bed of his truck was probably 100 feet. So we had to stop 4 times dragging that thing to catch our breath. So then we get up close to the truck, and there's a fence we had to go through to get the deer through, to get on the other side where his truck was parked. So we fought with that thing for probably another 20 minutes trying to get it, through the fence. And so finally we get it through the fence, we get it up in the back of his truck, sit there for a little bit, catch our breath. He's just in awe, as I am, just looking at that thing. So we head out, go back up to the field that my dad's in, which is, just at the other half of the field. So we go up there, and he stops the tractor, runs over there. He's taking pictures, couldn't believe it. Told my mom, she gets in the Chevy Suburban that she's got, two-wheel drive, comes barreling across the cornfield to come down there. And we were coming to our house. We had to come back to the house. So then we get back to the house, and I told my girlfriend at the time, sent her a picture and called her. So she ended up coming over, and her mom, and the neighbor guy and his kids and my cousins, all them came over. It was a big ordeal. It's pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime deer.
Right.
That's, something that doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
A deer like that it was something else for sure.
Word spreads pretty quick in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
All it took was one text, and it was wildfire.
That was it, yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. So what, you had to go 100 feet to your truck. Was it like just a dead pull? 300 pounds gutted. It's got to be 400, right?
Oh, yeah, I'd say at least 400 pounds.
So
that's when he first got there. I'm like, do you want to get this deer here? Like, no, let's get it in the truck.
Right. Good idea.
So he was more excited about it than I was once he got there. So let's just get in the trunk.
So what was the initial, grab the antler and pull like? Was it just like this dead weight you couldn't even budge it? Or
oh God,
what did it feel like when you finally grabbed onto it?
Oh my, yeah, and he's 6 foot, 250 pounds. He's a pretty stout guy. So, he'd come down, and it was all me and him had to drag that thing. Yeah, it was like you grabbed a hold of it, and it was like trying to pull on the front of a truck. It just didn't want to go at all. So finally, we got it moving, and Jesus, but he didn't want nothing about getting it. He wanted to get it in the truck, and we're going to go show it off. That's what he wanted to do.
What was running through your mind when you felt the sheer size of that on that antler? What were you thinking?
Oh, my God. It was almost just pure shock. It was one of those deals where, you didn't even believe it was real. Like one of those deals. It was just, I just amazed. You're dumbfounded, really.
Wow.
It's something else.
That's insane. So how did you get it from the ground into the truck? You just pure beast pull?
Just pulling on it. Yeah, I think I got in the bed of the truck and he lifted the head up. So I'm holding on to the head of this thing, yanking all I can on it. And he gets on the back and, we're fighting. And finally we get that thing, up to, and every time we pull on it, its shoulder catch the tailgate. So the tailgate want to come up. Every time we pull on it, the tailgate want to come up with the deer.
Right.
So, that's just fighting against you. So, it was a battle. It was a battle.
So how long did it take you to drag it from the creek into the bed of the truck? Like to actually lift it into the truck? How long did it take from that point to the point where you could actually drive away?
Oh, geez, it's like a good 20 minutes or more anyway. And it was only 100 feet.
Right. 100 feet is not.
That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight to drag up a hill.
A ton of weight.
Yeah.
Wow.
And usually, and every other year that I've shot a deer, he'll bring the tractor with the loader bucket.
Right.
And then this year, he brought the truck down. And when he brought the truck, I didn't even get to mind, like, hey, Rob, just go back and get the tractor. We can just roll it in the tractor bucket.
Right.
I didn't even cross my mind until after we got back to the house, after wrestling this deer, hey, we could have just went and got the tractor and, just rolled it in the bucket. Well,
of course, like all the other years, but this year, no.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So did you end up hitting it right exactly where you aimed, or was it?
Yeah, right behind the front, it being the deer's front left shoulder.
Okay.
Yep, right there.
That's just a big old tough
and
buck.
And when we gutted that thing, that deer, its lungs were just, there wasn't anything left. I don't know how that deer ran as far as it did.
Gotcha.
I have no idea. Yeah, when we gutted that deer, there was just nothing left.
Just so big, so much adrenaline. It didn't realize it wasn't capable of producing oxygen. It just took off. Just pure muscle. Yeah. Whatever was all the oxygen that was still in the muscle fiber was burning up at a rapid rate, but it still had plenty to get the heck out of there. Yeah. Because it's so big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's insane.
The picture that you've got, with me sitting, that's the bed of my brother's truck. That was after we'd give the deer, we loaded it back in the truck, and he took the picture. So the next morning, we took it down to the packing house, and I had to go to work. So I went to work the next morning, and my dad's like, "Hey, yeah, don't worry, I'll run that down to the packing house." Like, all right, he's pretty excited about it. So I'm like, all right, yeah, go ahead. And I said, just call me and let me know what it weighs, because we were both interested. Because that thing, we knew it was a horse. So he called me and said, you're not gonna believe this. I said, what it weigh? About 200 pounds. Yeah, because usually 200 pounds, that's a pretty decent sized deer.
Right. 200
pounds, dead dress. So he's like, no. And I go, how much does it weigh? Like 300 pounds. Like, there's no way. Like, yeah, 300 pounds. We weigh it twice. It's 300 pounds. He said the guy that was running the scale didn't believe it, and he took it down, zeroed the scale, put it back up in 300 pounds. So then I met him for lunch at a Hardee's in town, and everybody that comes through the drive-thru would stop and get out and take pictures of the deer and look and say congratulations. But it was just nonstop. Everybody that comes through the drive-thru would stop. So that was kind of neat,
300-pound whitetail. That's a big old buck.
And that's dressed. 300-pound dressed.
Yes, that was
whitetail
dressed.
Buck.
Yeah.
I've dragged a 240-pound whitetail out of the woods dressed. 240-pound dressed. Yeah. And that was heavy. I can't imagine what adding an extra 60 pounds plus the guts.
Yeah. The 60 pounds is dead weight. Yeah, plus the guts. Yeah. Yeah, that was, the 300 was field dress. Yeah.
That would be intense. And what would, if you had shot that anywhere else but your farm. It would have it would have taken you a couple days. Like if you shot it out in the middle of the woods, unless you had four-wheeler capacity. But even then, a lot of these four-wheels, I'm not sure would handle an extra 400 pounds.
Well, and that's, I kind of lucked out because the pasture there, I mean, it's got like that creek's, down and, it's got a couple rolling hills on both sides. But I mean, there's no, really big ravines or gullies or anything. Cause, I mean, if that deer would have went down, a gully or, a big, ravine or something, I don't know how you would have got it out of there.
Right.
You had to call in some more manpower.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be, anything can be moved, no question. But just the sheer size of, I mean, you just don't hear very often of 300-pound dressed whitetail coming out of the woods. It's just it's a rarity. It's extreme rarity.
Yeah.
I guess out in the Midwest like that, you might find them, but it just doesn't happen that often. So you had a 222-inch, 300-pound deer is what you ended up with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great job, Richard. That's just fantastic.
How'd he taste, Richard?
How'd it taste?
Yeah.
Was he a big old gnarly, just not good tasting buck, or did he actually have some decent meat? That's the question.
He was pretty tough.
I bet. Did you get him aged at all? Did anybody be able to determine the age of him?
Nope. I didn't end up getting him aged.
Yeah, I was just curious.
But the conservation officer that I know that lives in the county, he was probably guessing probably about five years or so.
No kidding.
Seems like something that big, that much mass, got to be 5.5, 6.5 years old, maybe even 7.5.
Yeah.
They just don't get that big, even with the perfect nutrition. It takes a lot.
Right. Yeah.
So now here's the classic question, and Dusty's going to pick on me for asking this because this is his favorite question. What did you end up naming this buck?
What I end up naming it?
Yeah. Did you give it a name?
I thought about it, but I haven't actually gave it a name. We
think all big bucks deserve a name. Dusty, what's on your mind here? What are you thinking?
I'm going with Lead Sled.
Lead Sled. The Lead Sled buck. What do you think, Richard? Does it stick?
I like it.
The Lead Sled buck. I love it.
Yeah, it was like pulling a lead sled up to the truck. It sounded like.
Yeah, it was.
That's a good name.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, you can really tell in that picture, but on his right side,
double main beam.
The way that it split, there's actually three. When they scored it, they were having a hard time because there's actually three main beams.
No kidding.
Good God.
Yeah.
This thing's just the stud of the woods. It's like something you'd see in like a fairy tale on TV, but it's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. It's phenomenal rack. It's probably, with the size, the weight, and the antlers, I'm guessing you got the biggest buck that we've ever talked about on the Big Buck Registry.
I think so. I think this might be the scale tipper here. I don't think we've ever had anything quite this big. Close, but not with the pure size.
Right. The weight's where you got everybody.
Weight, yeah.
Wow.
So how do you think about it today, Richard? Is it something you still think about every single day? Do you have a mount to look at that reminds you of the day that you took the buck?
Oh yeah. Yep. I see it every day. And this past weekend, I actually had it on display at the Indianapolis Deer and Turkey Expo. So it was on display over there for 3 days.
Very
so that
cool.
was kind of neat to go over and kind of display that, and that was really neat.
And what were people saying?
They liked it. I mean, pretty much, they're just amazed, just in awe. So I mean, it was kind of neat just to take it over and just kind of, show it off and let everybody see it. So it's pretty neat.
300 pounds.
Wow.
Of pure whitetail stud.
That's the Lead
Sled buck. There it is. So Richard, now that you've killed a buck of a lifetime, what's hunting look like for you going forward?
That's what a lot of people just kind of jokingly said, well, hey, you can retire from hunting now. Hey, you're done. You gotta let somebody else go down there and hunt, or I'm gonna go down there. But I don't really know. I've talked with my brother and everybody before, and I don't know. Do you start over? But I've always shot, really nice bucks, and it's hard and more, after coming home every day and you see this thing, hanging on the wall. It's just hard when you go out, to shoot something that's, not of that caliber. You know what I mean? Which,
right.
I may never get another chance at something that, of that caliber, ever. So, it just makes it kind of tough. I still enjoy hunting. I still enjoy, going out. And this past year, I ended up shooting a pretty decent 9-pointer. So that's kind of, and the deer always look, really big, on the deer. And, when they're moving, the deer's, up on all fours and walking, they always look huge. So I've got the 9-pointer, I thought was decent enough to do like a European mount. So I've got it mounted, and when I got it back, I've got the lead sled in my office.
Yeah, there we go. The lead sled.
Old lead sled's in your office.
Yeah, so I've got him in the office, and when I brought this 9-pointer in here that I got, it was just almost depressing, because it was a really nice, a really nice 9-pointer, and I've got it hanging. So I'm, I don't know really what to do or where to go from here. So I'm still
tough,
gonna hunt
man.
for sure. Yeah,
I can relate to that. It's definitely tough. You almost go into a point where you pass a great buck because you're like, man, I've got a monster on the wall at home. I don't know if I'm gonna shoot that. And in reality, though, it's truly a monster buck in anybody's eyes.
Yeah,
and I'm admitting the guilt on this. I've passed some great bucks and watched them walk away. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? But it's tough, and you don't really start over, but you actually start looking for unique character and compare it to size, and you start being a little more picky on your harvest. And I'm still a meat hunter. Don't get me wrong. But I can shoot a doe and get my meat from the doe. But the buck's got to have some character and some. I went all year, passed some great bucks, and didn't see the caliber deer I wanted to shoot. Set some higher standards. I've got great bucks on the wall, and you do too. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's an interesting problem to have.
It is, but
it forms a whole set of dynamic complexities that most hunters probably don't have in their life until you get to this phase where you are fortunate enough to harvest such an amazing animal. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So what's your best tip? If you had to share one tip, what's your best tip you would share with somebody if they wanted to become a better hunter?
I could just relax. Have a good time. When you go out, just relax and just enjoy yourself. Just have a good time. And
that's a great tip, really. That's a great tip.
Yeah, I like that one a lot because it's all about, you just kind of forget about all the other stuff, and you chill out, you relax, and you just enjoy the moment, and you don't, you kind of remember why you're there in the first place. It's not.
And usually when you're relaxed and you're out there, and and if you don't get a deer, no big deal. It's not that big a deal if you don't bring home a deer. But and really, if I wouldn't have been as relaxed as I was that day, going out, thinking about the next day, like I'm not going to see anything today. If I'd have went out and been like, I got to get a deer today, I got to shoot something today, and then I might not have, even shot that deer.
Right.
So.
Right. But you did get out. I think that's the interesting part of the story is that even though you were thinking about tomorrow and that maybe nothing's going to happen that day, you still made the time to get out at that prime time because you just get this urge. Like, I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out now. Yeah. And if it's just for an hour, it's for an hour. But at least you got out there. And in this case, it made all the difference.
Oh, it paid off. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yep. That's fantastic, Richard. That was it's a great story, and it's you just don't hear about 300-pound, 200-inch deer running around all the time, and you're fortunate enough to have one hanging on your wall, and that's awesome. So, job well done.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
What does 400 plus pounds on the hoof look like anyway?
It looks like a cow grazing across a pasture field.
It's like a big brown cow with big horns. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, you can kind of relate to that. That's
a 300-inch or a 300-pound buck. That weight-wise is, I'm going to say it's not uncommon here in Ohio.
Right.
Now, the antlers that Richard's buck has, wow, that's a stud buck all the way around. I mean, it's got all the qualities in a trophy whitetail that you would ever want. It's got it all. It had an extra main beam. It had a 222-inch gross scoring rack on it, and it was 300 pounds dressed. I mean, that is all the qualities across the board of a trophy giant whitetail. You know, that's a buck of probably 3 lifetimes.
Yeah. Do you routinely weigh bucks in Ohio?
Yeah, it's just one of them things where you kind of want to know, you know, for one, it educates you on if your proper nutrition's getting into the area, if there's enough food there. If you're shooting a buck here in Ohio and it's a mature buck, it's going to weigh 240 plus,
right,
on average.
Okay, that's a big deer. I mean, that's a monster buck for New Hampshire. 240.
Yeah,
that's like near the top of the charts.
Yeah, I'd say 250 is probably. You know, you're shooting a 5-year-old buck, it's going to weigh 250 here in Ohio, but just because of the fat and the nutrition that's, you know, so steadily available for them.
Right. And then the nutrition definitely makes a big difference. It made the difference for this Indiana buck. Indiana's not far from Ohio. I mean, it's borders Ohio.
No.
So it's the same kind of character of landscape and agriculture. For the most part. So I can see how, I mean, these deer they just gorge themselves all the time. Just eat and get fat and lazy and love life.
Yeah, it's just one of them things where they don't, normally we don't have deep snow.
Right.
You know, so they can graze through a corn and soybean field pretty much year round.
Right.
They pick the green up in the spring. We got a lot of hay fields, you know, so there's alfalfa, timothy, and just all the quality, nutritional value of greens and the tonnage. You know, you cut a hay field, what's it do? Come right back. The tonnage just keeps producing. Then you get into the soybeans getting up, and they're kind of a sweet tasting at the start. They're high protein, so they're going to naturally grub on them. Then your corn starts coming up, and they're naturally going to eat corn. I mean, that's what deer love. And they pack the weight on, you know. They don't lack nutrition, therefore the excess that they eat goes straight into the antler.
Gotcha. And to have a food source like that all year round is going to make a huge difference. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, look at New Hampshire. You guys are very minimal crop fields.
Yep.
Very minimal hay, if any at all. Probably not much at all, really. You know, we get into winter wheat. There's a green that's pretty much year round for, you know, that carries them through the winter months. So you drive by a winter wheat field around here and it's burned up.
Yeah. I mean, the deer in New Hampshire, they're going to be eating, you know, the young growths in the spring. They're going to be eating lots of grass in the summertime, lots of just hayfield stuff, and whatever else kind of looks good to them. But then in the fall, you got acorns loaded with high protein and fat content. So they gorge themselves on those things, which gives you that descriptive flavor of a New Hampshire buck. The acorn, you know, I'd almost describe it as a richer, gamier flavor than some of the places you might find in the Midwest. Some people like it, some people don't. But then after that, once the snow starts flying and it gets, you know, a foot deep, they're relying on all their fat stores to make it through the winter. So,
and their fat stores is not real big.
Right. Especially coming out of the breeding season for the bucks. So, you know, they don't have a lot to rely on going in, and what they do have is pretty much gone. But if they make it through,
you're right.
So yeah, large winter kill during the winter because there's nothing of nutritional value to replenish.
Right, and that's why your herd struggles growth wise. Right. You know, mature bucks. It's a young buck's going to make it because, you know, he can toughen it out.
Right.
He's got more energy. He's got, you know, a little more ability to travel the distance to get the food. Where a mature buck may not have that energy. He may not have that drive to stay alive. So, you know, you're not seeing the mature bucks make it through the winter where the young bucks are. And you guys struggle as far as having that extra nutrition to make the antler growth.
Right. It's a big difference. So to not have any snow, and when they're feeding on hemlock, which doesn't give them a whole lot of nutrition, it helps some, but you know, it takes its toll. So, but nutrition's huge, and clearly, as seen in the Sled buck and in the Chubby Tines buck, nutrition means a lot to a deer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, antler growth, it's just phenomenal. Yeah. Well, it's proven.
Thank you to Richard Swinford for telling us that story. You know, it's like most hunters, I would think, can relate to that. It meant a lot. So very cool. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Yeah, we do actually. We're getting into where shed season is in my eyes, officially here. We crested March 1st. You know, we're getting into the first week of March. Mm-hmm. It's time to get out and start taking a look in your area to see if that big buck has left you a ground surprise. So this, you know, now's the time to go. That my tip of the week is going to be that, you know, you get out shed hunting, take advantage of this time to not only find the antlers, but educate yourself on your area a little further than you were before. Shed hunting is great educational value. Yeah. As far as finding bedding areas. You know, now's the time to take a glimpse in there and see where their travel corridors are, where when you go in the hunt, you're kind of staying away from walking their trails or being in their area that they're normally in. You're just kind of skirting it when you're hunting. But now it's time you can get in there and you can get the full exposure. It's like getting deep into a book that you've only read 4 or 5 pages to. Now you can go through and read the whole story, put it all together, and then hope for the ending of the story to be awesome this fall when you start hunting.
Right. That's, you know, I took a drive around my town just the other day, and I was looking for basically where the deer are yarded up, and it's giving me clues as to where I should be going, and I'm finding places where I didn't even think deer existed for the most part. And what's funny is a lot of these heavy-duty trails are within, I don't know, 1/10 of a mile of a downtown area.
That's amazing, ain't it?
It's amazing. So,
but I'm going to comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm noticing the same thing around here a little bit, that the deer are migrating towards big town.
Yeah.
And I think that what I can research in my mind and putting some knowledge that I have of myself in that is that in town temperature is higher. Even the outskirts of town, the temperature is 3 to 5 degrees warmer.
That's a very good observation. You're right. I mean, you've got downtown areas, you've got heating sources, you've got asphalt that's heating up, absorbing some of the sun's radiant energy throughout the day. And that's
you got all the businesses that are producing, you know, the furnaces are running, they're spitting heat out. It's just a natural thing that they're going to this heat. I'm seeing it here in Ohio too.
That's interesting.
It's amazing. It seems like what I'm finding interesting here is it's pretty crazy how this is working. For some reason, the street lights are making the crops stay green.
Huh.
So therefore, the street light making the crops about a 35-yard circle around the street lights. There's green crops. Okay.
That's crazy.
Well, they go in to harvest.
Yeah.
And they just drive around these green areas and they leave the crop stand. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to run that through your combine. It's just you
sure.
know, plug things up and. You know, you're going to have, there's rot chances that your soybeans are going to be soft and they're going to rot in the grain bin. You just don't want that.
Right.
That runs into a long problem. So anyway, they leave these crop stand. These deer are unbelievably tearing these areas up. And it's like a deer highway going to and from these crops standing around these street lights. It blows my mind.
That's awesome. What an interesting observation and hypothesis about just what deer are adapting to in the winter and what they do to find food.
The great thing is we've seen a buck 5 miles from this area probably a month ago. Okay. We've seen this particular buck and he's got a funky rack. So we recognize him right away.
Yeah.
Like a week ago, this buck that we've seen 5 miles away from this one area has migrated over to where these crops are around these street lights.
Interesting.
We seen the buck. We know it's him. You know, you could very distinctively tell that it was this buck.
Right. Like a fingerprint. It's a fingerprint.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, as soon as I seen him, I said, man, that's the same buck we seen 5 miles down the road. But what's happening is they're trying to find a food source. You know, we've had a foot of snow on the ground.
Yep.
It's been cold. And they're going where the other deer are going to the food, closer to town.
Yeah. Well, we've had record cold February across the country for the most part. I mean, especially from your part of the country through the Northeast. I mean, we've had some record cold temperatures, and they're adapting to this type of stuff in this way. So we're seeing some things happen that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how they are almost recognizing that closer to town they get, the warmer the temperatures. So come midwinter, let's work our way towards town.
Right.
You know, we're going to see a 2 to 5 degree temperature change. We made the trip. Now, look, there's crops actually around these lights.
Right.
So it's like, you know, they're going to recognize that. I think late season hunting around town is going to be phenomenal in the next few years because these deer, this is the first year I've seen this, that these deer are actually migrating to these crops that are still standing.
That's interesting. And something that, I mean, you don't usually think about, but, you know, we're talking about it right here on the Big Buck Podcast. That's why you tune into this show, is to get those little interesting tidbits about buck life.
Yeah, and, you know, it seems like once they recognize that there's a food source late season and they kept them alive, they don't forget that.
Right.
It seems like they're going to go back every year to check that out. So I don't know. You know, if we get a cold winter early and we start getting some snow, these deer are going to do their winter migration towards town a little bit earlier. And I think that, you know, we're going to see some people shoot some big bucks that are skirting town around the offskirts that normally would not be there. But these deer are figuring out the temperature change and the food source, and it's all going to be stuck in their head, and they're going to do it yearly now.
That's amazing. I love it. I just love everything about that tidbit. That's very interesting, Dusty. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's something that I recognize here in Ohio, and I'm sure it's happening in other states and areas, and it may have been happening for a long time, but this year it seems like it's advertising itself more than it ever has.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen tracks going in and out of these areas, but this year I'm seeing highways. The whole field's burnt up where deer are traveling back and forth to get to this food source.
Gotcha.
Right at the edge of town, just where the corporation line ends. The street lights run another half mile out the road, and these deer are literally making this their home for now.
Crazy. Very cool.
Well,
I don't know if it's cool, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's just you know, something that like I said, you get a cold year, November, December gets real cold, you start seeing some snow early, and you're hunting the edge of town, you got a place there that you normally hadn't seen a lot of deer. I think that you may be sitting on a gold mine if we get some cold temperatures, some snow, and we get an early winter come in on us.
Yeah, yep. I'll have to pay attention to that next year. Well, that's cool, man. So how can the listeners, and how can I find you these days, online and offline?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Come check us out over there. You can submit a photo, tell a story. We always like to talk to everybody that messages into Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can also send me an email here at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Jay, how can the people reach out to you at the Big Buck Registry?
Yeah, you can send me an email, just like they sent you an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. Our Facebook page is bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook. Twitter.com/Big Buck Registry. YouTube is bigbuckregistry.com/YouTube. Let's see, where else can we do? We can you can give us a call at 724-613-2825. You can find us on Overcast, which is a new player for all kinds of podcasts, but specifically I like it a lot. It seems to have a lot of user interface. The guy that made Overcast also created the microblogging format called Tumblr. He did Instapaper, and now he's moving on to this Overcast thing. He loves the podcast. Big tech guy. But if you haven't checked it out, go to bigbuckregistry.com/Overcast. That's cast with a C. You can always find us on iTunes, which is that popular place to go to listen to podcasts, and that's bigbuckregistry.com/iTunes. And if you would leave us a review there, and you could subscribe. Just click the subscribe button, and you'll be notified every week anytime a new show comes out. And also, we're on the Prepper Broadcasting Network, which is, if you Google it, Prepper Broadcasting, you'll find us over there on their page. And you can tune in and listen to all of our shows over there. And I think we play Saturday night, I think it is, and Sunday afternoon. So I think that's it, Dusty. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. You know, you got a great story. Get with us.
Yeah.
We want to hear your story, or if you got a friend that's got a great story, send them our way.
Yeah. And if you just want to start with a picture like Richard Swinford did, all you got to do is send it into the Big Buck Registry by going to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and you'll find the video instructions there, everything you ever wanted to know about sending a picture into the Big Buck Registry, and I'll tell you what you need to do to get it featured on our show. And tell you what, if it's unique enough, I'll call you, get you on the show.
We always look forward to seeing a great buck and hearing a great story.
Absolutely. One of our favorite pastimes. just like baseball.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott.
And you're listening to the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.